Right, guys, so we're a couple of weeks into the format, so let's see where everything is sitting at. And to start off with, I'm going to talk about two of the newer decks that I've been trying out and definitely have had some potential. So, Ninjas, I'm going to put Ninjas in Rogue. They're not a bad deck. I'd say the biggest issue with them is that they still are a bit slow. Geo is a really cool interaction, especially in the Cashtira matchup, and in general, they do quite well in the Cashtira matchup because of their ability to floodgate. Essentially, it's floodgate trap hole basically. So they put the Cashtira monster set. Now the Cashtira player can't really play unless like they tribute over it. However, they don't do anything particularly special against the other top decks. If they're against Branded, if they're against Labyrinth, they are going to struggle. So it's not enough to just be able to kind of have a favorable matchup against the top deck. And I wouldn't even say it's necessarily favorable against Kashtira. They just have a win condition. But yeah, Ninjas is okay. Traptrix, on the other hand, I'm going to put it firmly at the top of tier 2. So this has been the main deck I've been playing, and I'd say Traptrix is actually a very, very strong deck, and probably the best budget deck at the moment. I don't think there's a deck cheaper than Traptrix. I don't think there's a deck that you can build for cheaper than Traptrix that will be as effective. Probably Sword Soul would have been the other cheap budget deck at the moment, but Sword Soul does need some relatively expensive extra deck staples. Even though Baron just got a reprint, Sword Soul will probably run you about, I'd say, 50 to 60 to run at the same effectiveness as Traptrix, which you can literally run completely from the structure deck. 3 copies of that is enough, as we've seen several people do top with the structure deck, which is so good and gave so many good reprints. So yeah, Traptrix firmly tier 2, has a very, very good Kashtira matchup, has a very, very good Labyrinth matchup. Well, I wouldn't say very, very good, but I'd say it's definitely better than most decks. Its Branded matchup is probably its worst one, but that's not unplayable as well. And then because it's a trap deck, it just has favourable matchups against most decks going second. Not most decks going second, sorry. Most decks going first, because set cards, if your opponent doesn't have a lot of back row remove, they will struggle. Going second as well, in this deck you're going to be main decking evenly, you're going to be main decking Raigeki, and so breaking apart your opponent's boards is not hard either. So definitely a very, very good deck. I would be shocked if Traptrix doesn't top at YCS London, because so many people will be playing it because it's just so easy to play. Yeah, very, very good deck. Pendulum's firmly non-meta. We've seen 1 or 2 people do some funny things with Pendulums, but I'm actually moving it down from Rogue, and essentially it just comes down to the fact that Kashtira walks all over this deck, and the deck's not doing anything particularly special. Last format, it could take advantage of the fact that Necro Valley was OP. Necro Valley is no longer OP, so you're not doing anything special with Pendulum that another deck could do, that I don't even think it's worth calling Rogue at the moment. It's just not in a particularly good place. It'll be interesting to see if it moves up, but I do think Pendulum is firmly non-meta. And if it does top, it's only because of random staples. Sky Striker, or Power Spell Sky Striker, I'd say, with a lot of board breaking stuff, I'm going to say is midish Rogue. It's not bad. It's just a case of power level. The power level of the format is quite high right now, and Sky Striker always struggles in formats like this. Sky Striker wants a slower, more control-y format. Now, because of the way Kashtira plays, and because it's making Labyrinth and Traptrix better, the format is slowing down. But if we do see some of those kind of crazy Kashtira boards, some of the crazy Punk boards come out, Sky Striker won't really be able to deal with that format. So I'm going to say right now it's middle of Rogue, probably not higher. Burn decks, stall decks. I still have Mystic Mind as a sign for that because I can't bother to change it. But burn/stall decks are still going to be firmly non-meta. It's just not an effective strategy. Messenger of Peace is a good card, but just not enough at the moment. Sprite tier 2, yeah, very good deck. In fact, the thing about Sprite is it's a tier 1 deck in that it is one of the best decks of the format. But I do believe that Branded, Labyrinth, and Kashtira are firmly above Sprite. I do think Sprite is still very, very good though, and I think Gishki Sprite is still extremely good. That deck is borderline unfair going first. But yeah, definitely an interesting one to watch, has a lot of potential. Dragonlink, we haven't seen anything, and so I did have it as bottom of tier 2 before. We still haven't seen anything unique. I guess, no, that's a lie. We saw one person do a Bestial Control build, which isn't too bad. But other than that, I don't think Dragonlink is coming up yet. People aren't really experimenting with it enough to make the deck worth being, I would say, a tier 1 or tier 2 deck. Runic, though, I will say definitely a solid tier 2. Runic has some good matchups. The thing is, inherently speaking, Runic does just stomp over a lot of matchups, because if they start playing things like Vanities and all of this, or not Vanity, sorry, Majesties and all of this, it's just hard to play around in random floodgates and then banishing your deck. Now, one weakness Runic will always have is that because it doesn't play monsters, it does have to kind of kill you slow, or not doesn't play monsters, but because it doesn't have a battle phase, it does have to kill you slowly, which can be an issue. But even in spite of that, it's still a very, very good deck. Naturia variant is also very good. So yeah, solid tier 2, not much to say about that. Sun Avalon, Rika, Plants, bottom of Rogue. I mean, It's not bad. I just think good play. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's anything special. And I think the reason why we occasionally see Sanavel on top is because good players play it. I don't think it's because it's a particularly good deck. Sword Soul is the other good. So I would say, look, guys, if you don't want to spend money this format, but you want to top, Sword Soul and Traptrix are definitely the two decks to play. They're both very, very cheap. Traptrix is cheaper because of the structure deck, but Sword Soul's still very cheap as well because it got reprints in whatever set the Ishizu cards came out. I think it's that set. But yeah, it's also a very, very good deck. It can blind second incredibly. I think blind second is so effective this form, by the way. I didn't think so before, but now I think you can actually blind second quite confidently and roll over people because the staples are just so strong. But then Soul can also go first and set up a pretty nice board. It doesn't really care about banishing, so it's got good, and it's got a lot of removal as well, so it's got better than you would expect matchups into decks like Runic and Labyrinth as well. And then also it can play Floodgate. You can play Rivalry. Rivalry is again a very, very good Floodgate this format. So yeah, definitely Sword Soul one to look out for. I'd say that it and Traptrix are about the same level. They're both very strong tier 2 decks. Not much to say about that. Virtual, mid to bottom of Rogue, it's just, yeah, it's not consistent enough. Labyrinth tier 1. Labyrinth is amazing. Yeah, set 5 pass is always going to be strong, but Labyrinth and Runic are now this new trend, and Traptrix now are this new trend of fast trap decks. These decks are not slow. They don't take 3 turns to set up and lock your opponent out of the game or have to rely on a Floodgate. And I think what makes Labyrinth so strong is that even though it does rely on Floodgates, it just sets them from the deck, set D-Barrier from the deck, set Eradicator from the deck. The ability to do that is literally so, like, it's incredible. That's what makes the deck so unfair. And then on top of that as well, having those big monsters as well, so it can just sometimes just kill you and murder you out of nowhere. Very, very hard to deal with. So Labyrinth, very strong deck, tier 1 deck for sure. Madolche's Rogue, no reason to talk about it. Drytron I'm actually going to put in mid tier 2 as well. I think Drytron is in a very good place because it's one of the few decks that does make hard negates. So a lot of decks aren't making hard negates, which is why cards like Evenly and such are very good. And a lot of people aren't playing cards like Dark Ruler anymore because it's not amazing against Casteria. Well, if you're not playing cards like that, you will struggle against Drytron. So Drytron can kind of put your opponent in a position where, unless they somehow have Dark Ruler or Super Poly or Lava Golem, your opponent just loses because you have a Herald with like 4 negates and then an Appaloosa. So yeah, Drytron, very, very good this format. And even though its Casteria matchup is bad, every other matchup it has is good. And its Casteria matchup is bad going second. If it goes first, it'll beat Casteria. Like, if it goes first, Casteria doesn't have much it can do against it other than draw Lava Golem. Similar to a lot of other decks where it's like, most decks, Drytron will flat out just win going first. And then a lot of decks, Drytron can just crack your board going second and kill you. So yeah, very, very good. Look, guys, you guys all said Dinos is amazing. It's arse, bro. Dinos is straight doo-doo. You guys lied. Everyone loves to put their copium on dinosaurs that it's going to be great this format against Casteria. I haven't seen one dino player do anything. I don't know. Maybe someone at YCS London will prove me, but Dinos is doo-doo. It's not doing anything. I'm not even going to put Dinos in non-meta. It's not a good deck. It's just not consistent enough. Gren Marju, on the other hand, also non-meta. Yeah, not much to say about it. Tribrogate Sprite. Now, what's interesting is I'm not seeing people experiment with Tribrogate as much as I thought. So I've been playing a lot of Dueling Book. I've been going to a lot of locals. For some reason, I've seen a lot of Live Tune Sprite. I haven't seen a lot of Tribrogate Sprite. So maybe some of you guys who are Sprite players can explain to me, is it that the Tribrogate variant isn't good? Is it that Tribrogate in general is just not good anymore? I don't know. It seems like it wouldn't be terrible, this format, but maybe it's just me and I'm just not understanding the deck because it's not a deck I really play often. But Tribrogate Sprite variants don't seem to be doing anything. Pure Tribrogate or Tribrogate Melfi doesn't seem to be doing anything. So in fact, I'm actually going to move it down to Rogue just because it's not getting results. No one's playing it. I don't know why. I think it's strong, but no one cares about it. Flunderies is an interesting one. I'm going to put in one to watch. So I do think Flunderies in terms of power level is somewhere around tier 2. It's in one to watch because in this format, especially board breaker format, Flunderies, like I said, Go Second Flunderies was always very, very good. Shout out to Blue Deck Box. He's the one who showed me the wonders of this. But yeah, I think Flunder has a lot of potential and it's a deck that a lot of people are ignoring. Yes, it doesn't have Barrier Statue, but if you've played against Flunder, that doesn't really matter. They're still a very, very good deck. Now, they haven't got the insta-win button or Barrier Statue anymore, but they do have another way of doing that with the trap. Well, I can't remember what their trap is called. And they are still very, very oppressive for a lot of decks. So yeah, Flunder, huge, huge, huge potential. I think it's one to watch. I think it could sneak a win as well. It's still a very, very good deck, a very solid engine. Eldritch is now firmly in non-meta. So yeah, I think it's just got to the point where there's so much graveyard hate in the game that a lot of decks have access to. And then Labyrinth is just a way better trap deck. Like, if you're going to play a trap deck, play Labyrinth. There's nothing Eldritch does better than it. So yeah, unfortunately, Eldritch is there. Synchro spam decks. Now, there's a new Punk one, But as for the Rose Dragon one, that's just completely dead in the dust. So many like kind of out of left field hits that have just taken out of the game. Exo Sisters, yeah, somewhere bottom of Rogue. I haven't seen one person play Exo Sisters since the Shizu Tears disappeared, and yeah, like I said, this deck just isn't doing anything special, unfortunately. Now, all the Cyber decks, so like I said, all of the Cyber decks last time I put high Rogue because I thought they all had potential. I'm going to change it slightly and actually say that the Cyber decks are low tier 2 now. So where's Ignista? Do I have Ignista here? Okay, I guess I don't have Ignista here for some weird reason, which is weird because that's the one I do. Yeah. So I think all of the Cyber decks, including Mathmech, or at least these three, which is Mathmech, Marincess, and Ignista, I think they're all low tier 2. I think the thing about these decks is we're in a format right now where the top deck is doing huge amounts off one card. That's actually what makes Kashtira so good, not the board. It's the fact that it does all of this off one card a lot of the times. And so the fact that there are other decks that can do this as well, I think it's their time to shine now because Mathmech can also compete. So again, I'm going to shout him out again. Jimothy Yugioh topped a locals yesterday against 2 Kashtira players with Mathmechs. And again, it's because the deck is just so consistent off one card. Same with Ignista, same with Marincess. These decks are definitely ones to watch out for. So in terms of the one to watch out for, I'm going to put Mathmech as the one to watch out. But yeah, I'd say all of the Cyber spam decks are great. Salad is in the tier below because I'd say it's not as efficient as these. Because I think it still has one Gazelle. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Salad still has one Gazelle. If Salad had more Gazelle, I think it could do a very effective one-card combo. As of now, it has to rely on like Lady Debug and stuff for its one-card combos, which isn't as good. But yeah, Cyber decks are amazing right now. Punk Synchro Spam is another one to watch. So I'd say it's low tier 2, high Rogue. The reason being is because there are several FTKs that Punk can do. Well, I don't know for several, I think it's 2. But the point is, Punk can FTK or make semi-unbreakable boards off 1.5 2-card combos. And no one's really watching out for that. And a lot of people are dropping hand traps in favor of board breakers. But this is why those Cyber decks are good, by the way, because I think hand traps are actually good. But because so many people aren't playing hand traps, if you come up against Drytron, if you come up against Dark World, if you come up against Punk, and they build their board and they win dice roll, you just lose. You can't. It doesn't matter if you have evenly if they've FDK'd you. So like, or if they have like 6 negates, it doesn't matter. So definitely I think Punk is one to watch as well. I think it does have some potential in this format. It will struggle against Kashtira, as will a lot of decks, but Kashtira is not as dominating or as oppressive as Tia, so struggling against Kashtira isn't the death sentence as it was before because not everyone's playing it. DDD somewhere in Rogue. True Elements has potential. Has a lot of potential. I think this is another one to watch. And again, this is one of the things that I really like about this format. I think there are so many different routes you can go. It's a really good format because Konami have given a lot of these decks support over the last few months, and so when Tira was removed, a lot of these decks are playable. Now, it's still difficult because Kashtira is the thing, and I think that's what's holding True Elements back. But True Elements is still a very oppressive engine. I mean, if it does get going, it's very hard to beat it because it grinds forever. It can really just explode a bunch of monsters onto the field, and there's no restrictions. And that's one of the things that makes it so strong. Like, you're going to be seeing fusions, synchros, XYZs, everything on the board if they want. The tournaments is awesome. ABCs, I don't know why I still have that on the list. Ultimates, I don't know why I still have that on the list. As for our next tier 2 deck, obviously, look, Branded, it's amazing. I think Branded is worse than Labyrinth because fundamentally speaking, in a big tournament, you want to be playing the easier deck. And I will say, even though Labyrinth... okay, I don't like the word easier, but essentially, it's a lot less overwhelming to your mental to play a trap deck than it is to play Branded, in my opinion. In Branded, you will struggle because you'll get ashed and you'll get deburied and stuff and you just won't be able to play. That's not going to happen playing Labyrinth. So I think Branded is by far the worst of the tier 1 decks. But, I mean, the strength of Branded is always going to be its engine is better than every deck in the game, pretty much, apart from Kashtira. It's got a more efficient and a more, like, explosive engine than every other deck. But its engine can be stopped by every deck just by taking in 3 cards that you should be playing anyway. Ash Blossom, and then D-Barrier for games 2 and 3, and that's what I think holds it back. But yeah, Branded, very, very good. Vernisilf is not meta. Naturia, so like I said, Naturia, Runic variants, somewhere in tier 2. Again, it's just a very, very good deck. Runic is hard to deal with, and it hits a lot of things in the format, which is great. Unfortunately, I was hoping Dogmatica would do something, but I think it's just not the right format for it. So yeah, Dogmatica is somewhere down there. And then the Ishizu cards are non-meta, unfortunately. Just being one of us makes them just unplayable. Yeah, we saw some interesting support. I think it's Offerings to the Doom. Maybe that will make the card come back. But yeah. So as for the undisputed best deck, look, it's got to be Kashtira, I mean, yeah, it is the best deck. And the thing as well that you need to understand is that Kashtira is so strong that it's literally warping the format around it, similar to Tier 2 elements. Every deck does have to kind of say, can my extra deck handle being violated by Kashtira? If it can't, I need to change my deck to manage that. And so you'll see a lot of the top decks have that redundancy and so are able to do that. But what's nice about Kashtira versus Tier Elements is that it's not that oppressive that you just don't win. Against Tier, I would sit across from a Tier Element player and know that I'll probably lose on my turn. They'll just do stuff even though I've won the dice roll and I'll lose. Kashtira, if I win the dice roll against them, I know that it's actually not hard to stop them. Trap Tricks, for example, you floodgate their monster they can't play. But yeah, it's still Undisputed the best deck because it will a lot of the time just win. Arise is an amazing card. All of the cards are summoning themselves for free. They don't have to play into Nibiru. And also, there's variants of this deck that haven't even been explored because people don't need to. So yeah, Kashtira, Undisputed best deck. But whereas Tier Elements was like a 10, and then the closest thing behind it was like a 6, I'd say Kashtira is like an 8, 7.5, and then the closest thing behind it is like a 6, which would be these two. So it's a very, very good deck, but it's not so oppressive that it just destroys everything else. Rescue Ace is non-meta. Purely is also non-meta because, yeah, it still needs more support. Mekanko is somewhere at the bottom of Rogue. It's not bad, but again, it's just not, again, fundamentally speaking, you have to ask these questions with decks like this, which is, are they doing anything special that another deck doesn't do? If I want to play a ritual deck, just play Drytron and FTK your opponent. Why are you playing Mekanko and hoping you can OTK your opponent? It's just, yeah, exposing your graveyard and all these things for no reason, no. So don't play Mekanko because it's just not worth it. Plunder Patrol Runic is one to watch. I think Plunder hasn't been explored a lot, but I think some people are probably keeping it under wraps, and we'll see it at YCS London. But I do think Plunder Patrol Runic has a lot of potential. Crystal Beast is not meta, just haven't been seen it. Tier Elements, Kashtira is another one, so it's the same as Tier Elements, it's just one to watch. I think has a lot of potential. Dark World is actually going to be low tier 2 as well. So Dark World, it's the exact same deck as Drytron, but worse. It FTKs you. So Dark World hand loops you, whereas Drytron puts up infinite negates. The reason why I think Drytron is slightly better than Dark World, though, is Dark World has to play more bricks in that almost all of the Dark World monsters are bricks, unfortunately. Whereas the Drytrons are all like starters, combo pieces, I don't know. But yeah, that's what holds Dark World back. But I still think it's very good. I think Simon He, immediately after the ban list, got 8-1 at Las Vegas with it and bubbled, unfortunately. But yeah, this deck is still very, very, very good. We're in a format with a lot less graveyard hate. And it doesn't have a terrible matchup against Kashtira because of the dangers as well. It can just kind of crack that board if it needs to. So that is quite good. Then lastly, Gishki. So yeah, Gishki / Gishki Sprite. I think it has a lot of potential. Somewhere low tier 2. It's not terrible. It's not like terrible, that's why it's low tier 2. It's just low tier 2 because we haven't seen enough people explore it. But I do still think it's a pretty good deck. But guys, that is my tier list for this format. I definitely think we're in a much better place. And one of the things I love, look how many decks are like okay to play. You have so many options. I'm seeing so many different decks do well at tournaments, and I really do like that. So we're definitely in a lot healthier of a format. Kashtira is still frustrating, especially because of Diablosis. Hopefully that goes. But other than that, we're in a really good format. So hopefully Konami just kind of dings Kashtira a bit, especially with regards to Diablosis. But other than that, I like this format. So fingers crossed we'll stay here. Thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.